Thanks for clicking the video, guys. I'm Xoan, and this is the Gamer's Oasis. Hey guys, I'm so excited. I can't explain. I'm going to try to do though. I have been given the green light to go ahead and try and do a fantasy game for our family night. I'm going to be doing something kind of inspired by a lot of the fantasy games I played, and I'm sure you'll be able to point to some things. Say, oh, that's kind of like this. Please comment below when you see those type of things. I'm interested to find out what you have to say. So I'm going to be playing this with my 7-year-old middle daughter, and I'm going to be playing this with my 11-year-old oldest son and my wife. So the four of us are going to go into this adventure. I kind of built a game system all around this, so it's going to be new to me a little bit, but at the same time, I've been doing a lot of work, so I should know it fairly well, or all the work. Let me go ahead and just explain this. As I go, I'm going to be putting pictures up, making me small, hopefully if I do it right, and that will help describe all the minutia I'm not going to be covering in the video, because the video will be too long as it is anyways. I've done this video about 10 times, so that's what I know. All right, so I'm going to have the 5 commandments. They'll go ahead and scroll right through, or post right through here. I'm going to have a virtue system. This is sort of where I want role playing in my household to go. I want good sportsmanship. I want people to get along. I don't want arguing and that type of stuff. I hope this transfers into their daily life, not just in game, but we'll see. I have a negotiation system that everything will be handled through combat. Though if you don't handle it through combat, you don't get all the rewards. There'll be consumables that they can trade, like a large fish. I'm not going to be keeping track whether the large fish rots, but I will keep track of how many large fish they have. If they run into a lizard folk or lizardmen, they can go ahead and trade that lizard man the large fish, and hopefully he goes away without conflict. That'll be based upon one of their adventuring skills called negotiate. Certain races do negotiate better than other races, but I'll get into that more in the future. I do not have a traditional stat system. It's all kind of the same. If you're a dwarf warrior and this person's a dwarf warrior and you're the same level, then your stats should be exactly the same unless your gear is different. And then that might influence some things up and down. What else about that? Let me go into actual what we have for the stats. So we have offensive skills. Offensive skills being swords. Swords will be used, but they'll be used under the guide of the offensive skill slash. And then you have blunt, and you have pierce, and you have fire, void, holy, and sonic for the magic sphere. So I spoke about swords. So you swing a sword in combat, that's slash. You pick up an axe and you throw it, that's slash. Same thing. You shoot a bow, that's pierce. You take a sling, that's blunt. So that's kind of how they work. Very simple, very basic. We're dealing with children, some of younger age, and I want them to be able to run the game themselves. We'll get into that more a little later. Then I have defensive traits. Defensive traits are actually the mirror of the offensive skills. So if you throw a slash weapon at someone, they use their slash resist or defensive trait to resist that attack. I have adventuring skills. I spoke about negotiate already. There's also find trap. If you can find a trap, then you can disable the trap, or you avoid the trap when it goes off. I'm not trying to get into all the other things that some other games get into. Secret door. If you find a secret door, then you find a way through it, whether it's bash it down or whatever. The last one is eluding me. Oh, survival. Survival is everything that has to do with basically everything else. So swimming, jumping, climbing, if those ever become a thing in the game, you have to do to pass a certain part of the room. Or if you're skinning a bear to turn it into a cloak, which would be considered a special quality item, then that would be survival. And like I said before, each race is better at some things than they are other things. And some races like humans are somewhat good at all of them. Because that's the benefit of being a human. I'm not using a D20 or any of the other dice. that you would normally see in a D&D type style game or a lot of the other fantasy games. I'm just using straight 2d6 for everything. So doubles becomes a thing. Double ones being extremely bad, double sixes being possibly good. Mini boss type of thing versus trap. The doubles in the middle just add monsters to the fight. Let's see here. If you're hit, you're hit. You just take damage. There's no different ways to resolve the damage. You can't negate it. You can't deflect it. If you're hit, you're hit. I don't want to get into all of that with a game designed for children. Monsters don't have a holy skill, but they do have a holy resist, because my morality in the game is very black and white. PCs or player characters or the party is always good. Not NPCs. Monsters are always bad. So NPCs can be good. NPCs can be bad. And they're actually monsters, they're not NPCs. And they don't have a holy stat, they have a holy resist. But they don't actually have a holy skill, I should say. Races. So I've got dwarf, elf, Firbolg. You can Google that if you want to go ahead and look it up. It's Firblog. It's sort of a Celtic race that's almost giant like human, stands about 8-9 foot tall. Kind of a nice, friendly looking type of human, though. It's not like an ogre that's aggressive looking. But they are believed to exist in mythology. Then you have gnomes. All these other races can come from what I'm calling the Feywild, or I have a place called the Beastlands. There are different planes of existence that sometimes traverse into the prime material, but I won't necessarily go into all. This is my homebrew, so I'm kind of drawing a lot of it from that. Gnomes, halflings, humans, and then I have something called a Hybisil. You can also Google that. That's Hybsil. It's kind of a fawn or deer-like body and a humanoid top. Sometimes they're a little more insectoid, but we're not talking like praying mantis type stuff. We're talking cute, cuddly, kid-friendly stuff. They stand about 3.5 foot tall. They weigh way more than the halfling, but they're not quite as heavy as a dwarf. Let's see. Oh, and then there's the lynx folk, also about the same height, except these are cat people. They're much denser than halflings. They are closer to a dwarf in proportions, if a dwarf was 3.5 foot tall. So those are basically the different races. Going to classes, we have the Bard. The Bard is a healer class that doesn't heal in combat. His heals come after combat. So he buffs during normal rests and long rests that give you extra hit points or heals you. He also has things that he can do in combat, like some crowd control and spell damage, as well as physical damage. Certain creatures have weaknesses, so he may put a sleep spell on this person and then fight this person. But if he ever does another sonic spell, then that initial sleep spell breaks. He can only have one spell up at a time. Clerics are the mainline healers of the game. They can heal in combat directly. They can eventually raise dead if PCs died. He can awake, I guess you could say, PCs again, right in the middle of combat if he needs. They are the best at that, though, and they're the only ones that have direct heals on players in the combat system. After that, you have the Mage. The Mage is the most versatile, high utility, high damage, arcane caster type that there is in the game. The Rager is the most offensive physical type. He has the ability he uses a two-handed weapon. He does not use a shield, but he has frenzy, so he can have burst damage. When he's frenzying, though, he takes negatives to all of his defenses, so he can really suffer in that way. After the Rager, we have the Summoner. The Summoner is a arcane caster type that has pets. The pet is both sort of good in the front line to take hits, can actually melee, and then the Summoner can actually cast spells that are single target direct damage, or they can heal their pet themselves. Then you have the Warrior. The Warrior is the best defensively as far as all the races go in physical combat. He doesn't take a hit as hard, or I mean, he takes it the same, but he has more health points, so it affects him less. And he's also the hardest to hit in melee. Having a warrior is always a good idea. What else am I forgetting? Structure of the dungeon. So there are normal rooms, there are special loot rooms, and then there is the dungeon boss room. Okay, so when you enter a room, though the structure of what's left, what's right is all the same, what's inside that room or crossway is always different. You roll every time you enter one of those areas to see what populates. It could be a mini boss, it might not be. If you go into a special room, it might be the mini boss plus whatever, or it could be a mini boss plus a mini boss if you happen to roll unfortunate, or it could be a mini boss plus a trap if you roll really unfortunate. When you go into the boss level room, same thing. It could be the boss, the big boss, I guess you could say, and a trap, or it could just be monsters, or it could be a mini boss, which could make it really difficult. So it's not always the same, but it's different every time you go in there. And there are ways to bypass the level so you don't have to continue going back through the same stuff and it gets mundane and drawn out and that type of stuff. Let's see here. Special loot rooms. Special loot rooms are rooms where there's guaranteed to be a mini boss. I talked about the fact that you could roll a mini boss or a trap at the same time, and that would be horrible. But there are fixed positions for them, so you can always find a mini boss on each level, at least one, probably closer to 4, depending on the size of the room. And that's how that works. Let's see if anything else I forgot. Every level gets harder as you go down, kind of old school gaming mentality. So the first level starts out goblins, orcs. 5th, 6th level, you're looking at like lizard men and ogres and trolls, that type of stuff. So as you go down, the levels get harder and harder and harder. So that's something to think about as you're playing the game. Well, guys, I think I need to go ahead and wrap this up. If you have any questions, please come over to Facebook, find us on the Gamers Oasis, or message me directly at DM Xoan. You can find me there. I'm willing to talk about this as much sort of as you want. I might be a little light on details as the game is still coming out. And I almost forgot, one of the big things about the game is the only thing the characters bring to the table is a character sheet. So they will be very unfamiliar with the actual core mechanics of the rules. And I think part of the viewing experience will be not knowing all the rules themselves mechanically. Knowing how they work, knowing what happens is fine, but knowing why necessarily may not be important. So if this is something you want to see more of, please hit the subscribe button. Make sure you click on that bell so that you go ahead and get all of our updates that we put out. I'll be doing this hopefully eventually live stream. So if you're on Facebook, you'll actually get notified that I'm doing a live stream of this when I do it. If you have any comments, please comment below. And I hope to see you guys in the future. Thank you and have a great day.